I don't know about you guys, but once that kick was hooked, I didn't even watch I blanket over my face, staring at the ground. I had a bad feeling he yanked it. And my wife and I, we were just sitting in the room silent for probably a good 10 minutes. No words were spoken. And from there, everything started to unravel. And I started to really kind of think of what are the repercussions of such a bad loss for Ole Miss in a season where in our lives, guys, this may have been their best chance at ever winning a national championship. And so I'm going to hold more thoughts there, but how'd you guys all take it?
Luke, you want to start?
Well, I can start. I will say the only thing I can provide here, because I was a little occupied during the game, so my bad. But you're talking in the past tense or was, there's still a chance. I mean, you can probably still get in. Maybe this was the wake up call they needed to, see. I mean, we've played what 4 terrible teams prior to that. Didn't know what we had. We still have probably a ton of good players, but there's still a chance, man. I still think 10 wins, 10 in your end, basically, and my dog's losing his mind.
No worries.
Cool. Coleman, would you like to take it away, or Jake, about how bad Ole Miss's losses versus Kentucky?
I mean, I took it better than today. No, Jake's right. There's a lot of repercussions that come from this, and also Luke's right as well. There's a lot of season left. I think, and I sent everyone this text, and I can read it when I find it. There we go. Yeah, 10-2 can get you in. I don't think it'll get us in, to be honest with you, because our schedule's so weak. I think if you look at it from a preseason point of view, that Ole Miss had such an easy schedule, which was great if we can run the table and lose one of our 3 games to LSU, Oklahoma, or Georgia. At that point, 10-2 when we're in, great, easy schedule. But now since we lost one of those should be winnable games on our schedule, I don't think 10-2 will get you in because we've played such a weak schedule and because we've had such a weak non-conference schedule. And because Oklahoma's not as good as we thought they were going to be, because LSU's not as good as they thought they were going to be. And I mean, in Georgia, we'll discuss that later on. They could still run the table and be the best team in the country. So you still have that, but because our schedule's so weak, I don't know if 10-2 will get you in. I mean, the AP has us at 12, which I think is extremely generous to keep us at 12. But the AP doesn't matter. It'll be what the playoff committee thinks in whatever it is, like a month or so. But there's a lot of repercussions if we fail to make the playoff. I sent this text message out, and I'm gonna be honest, this was a little much, a little overreaction, but I had sent it out. Independence Bowl, here we come. Lane's gone, Dart to the NFL. Best players sitting out of a bowl game and are entering the transfer portal. We start Austin Simmons at quarterback with an interim head coach, Pete Golding. Program in shambles. Have to hire John Sumrall. Nobody likes to hire. And we drop back into SEC irrelevance. Us, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. From there, NIL donations drop. The Grove Collective ultimately dies. Chris Beard leaves as a byproduct of the Grove Collective dying. Basketball program goes back to irrelevance. Bianco retires. The baseball team starts completely over. Money put in the baseball facilities look great. However, no one cares anymore because the team's so bad. Fans stop showing up to the games. University is losing money hand over fist because of baseball stadium upgrades and declining attendance. Attendance declines due to bad sports across all categories. University goes into debt. We have to forfeit all non-revenue generating sports. We lose state funding because enrollment's down. We move to the Sun Belt, and then we say hello to conference games against South Alabama. End quote. There could be a lot of fallout from this loss.
I thought you nailed it. I didn't think it was too much with the state I was in.
Yeah, but I'll give that over to Jake and Bo. Whatever. What are you guys' thoughts?
Jake, you can take it away if you want.
Yeah, I mean, look, you break down the game first, then we can get to the repercussions. But you look at what Kentucky did, and it was similar to when they're playing Georgia, right? When you have teams like Kentucky and you have Mark Stoops, you don't want to keep them hanging around. Like the worst possible thing happened. And I think the two things that really stood out to me was go back and look at the receptions and targets across the team, right? I mean, they pumped Trey Harris, gave him a bunch of balls. We didn't have a lot of big chunk plays, though, from Juice Wells or anyone else. And that really killed all of the big play opportunity. What I also noticed, too, was what did we hear coming into this season? They crushed it in the transfer portal. They got all these big names on the defensive line. They're built like Georgia. They're built like Bama now. They can really hold their own in the trenches. I think you go back and look at some of the tape in Kentucky, and it looked like the same D line we've had the past decade. Like they weren't playing spectacular. They were getting blown off the line. They were really running it down our throats, especially those QB runs that they kept running with either quarterback that they subbed in there. Killer. Awful momentum for a defense, and just very demoralizing. So that was something in itself. And I think, hey, hats off to Mark Stoops, 4th and 7 on your 20, ends up being a 63-yard bomb for a gain, putting them in a great position to go ahead. But also another dagger, the fumble to the guy, like the other Kentucky player right in the end zone. Couldn't have happened more perfectly if you scripted it. Like that doesn't look real in a movie if that happens. And I think what you saw in that game was a team that couldn't really put their foot on the gas. They didn't make a lot of adjustments. And hats off to Kentucky, too. I think they're just a lot better team than people might have suspected, unless you go and look at Danny Cannell's tweets where he's saying Ole Miss was just fraudulent. And maybe that's the case, too. I'm of the opinion, though, I'm not very optimistic. I think this leads to a lot of negative things, which we can get into. But those are some of the things that I would highlight throughout the game that I saw. And overall, I mean, I have not been this disappointed in a loss since the Wisconsin Badgers played, I think it was the Florida Gators. I think it was in March Madness.
Yep.
I forgot which round, but last second shot, Chris Chiozza goes down, hits a three-pointer, ends the Badger season. This was after Zach Showalter hit a three-pointer, points at Aaron Rodgers in the crowd, does the discount double check. I thought it was going to go down as a historic win, only for that to be killed. That means not a lot to a bunch of people listening, but this was a heartbreaker. And with that, Bo, I know you were boots on the ground there. So what did you think?
Devastating. I will say the first drive we scored in about 2 minutes, like 70, 80 yards, and confidence was at an all-time high. I'm like, oh, we're about to roll Kentucky. Student section was fantastic. Everybody was very good. I think that is one of the worst offensively called games in, I don't know, 5+ years since Lane's been there at Ole Miss. That was horrendous. Like, we looked so bad. So many 3-and-outs. And then I get your point about the defense of how, it looks bad, but when you're having 7-minute drives that the defense is on the field, then we give the ball back in 35 seconds, and they have another 7-minute drive. It's like the big boys up front are obviously going to be exhausted. And at first, I thought their D-line dominated against our offensive line. Like, we looked like men against children. It reminded me of, like, when we played Bama, like, we couldn't compete with them up front, or the previous years. And everybody, like you said, was touted as now Ole Miss has linemen, and they're good to go. I think this is the most devastating loss, at least since I've been a fan of Ole Miss, that's ever happened in football. And as far as repercussions, I know I texted you guys this, but I think if we lose if we lose more than 3 games, I think Lane's definitely leaving. So if we win 10 games, I think he stays. 9 games, I think it's 50-50. If we somehow only win 8 games or less, I think he leaves. And it's just like he's already the transfer portal king, so wherever he goes, I mean, he doesn't really have to worry about getting recruits when he can just have grown men fly in if he has a big NIL deal. But it's horrendous.
I think he leaves if we don't make the playoff.
I would agree. But boots on the ground, that was devastating. It was truly devastating in Oxford. It was, I don't really know how to describe it. It's just like a in awe feeling of like, everybody expected us to roll Kentucky, or at least win by, I'd say, 10 points. That seems like a reasonable spread. And we just looked horrendous. We looked really bad on offense. It was just very disappointing given how touted we're supposed to be with all these guys. It really was just Trey Harris. We had no big plays, and it seemed like we made zero adjustments on offense throughout the game. We couldn't establish the run really at all in a 6-man box when we ran 2x2. And it was just a lot. I mean, a lot of our like deep plays, if you look back at it, it's like pre-scoring on fourth and whatever, catching a bomb late in the game to give us a lot of hope. Dart looked really bad the next 2 plays, I believe it was, or 3 plays, trying to make something happen. And then
Yeah,
we get our
he did
kicker.
not shine in his Heisman moment whatsoever.
No. His Heisman odds dropped to 2,000 after this week.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think they got punched in the mouth and didn't respond. Offensive line, Dart was under pressure the entire game. Did not look comfortable at all. Defensively, they played much better in the second half. I mean, they went on those long drives in the first half, but they gave up field goals.
Yeah. Yep.
So that did look good. And then second half, they looked much better. But you're right, Bo. I think it's a really, really poorly called offensive game with minimal to no adjustments.
Exactly.
I also, the other thing I've been seeing circulating a lot is Ulysses Bentley, like no carries, isn't really seen at all. They asked Lane about if he'll be getting more carries, and Lane just kind of chalked it up to like, I can't predict the future, what that holds. So I'm really curious to understand what exactly is going on there.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I would agree. 2 things to piggyback, though. I think the defense, like we all said, did their job, although they were out there for, like, if you look at, I think, time of possession throughout the game, it's 40 minutes Kentucky and 20 minutes Ole Miss. So 2-1, the defense is on the field, and they're taking their time on purpose because they know they're just going to wear them down through 4 quarters. Secondly, the opening kickoff where we thought we fumbled, that was one of the hardest hits I've seen in that stadium in 4 years or 5 years, really. It was unreal. Like, the whole crowd unanimously looked like that. Then somehow we got the ball back, and obviously the momentum swung back our way. But that should have been the telltale sign it was going to be a long day.
But I think fallout from this and just moving forward a week is it's not an easy game coming up against South Carolina.
No.
As well.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
It's a tough place to play. It's a tough environment. They have their quarterback back, Lenore Sellers, who's expected to play this week, who they lost midway through this LSU game 2 weeks ago. It's not an easy road environment at all. I want to say that Ole Miss started out as a 10.5-point favorite. I think they moved all the way down to 7.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You guys seem a bit more optimistic about Lane staying around than I do. I kind of think it's.
He's got to win out, really, because if we.
Yeah, he does. He's got to win out.
We have to win out. Like, the only game, I still think we have to beat Georgia at home. We have to beat them. Like, if we don't win out, I don't think we get in. I'm on the same side as Coleman.
Yeah.
Maybe it will matter. I don't know. It depends how they finish out, but I don't think it helps that Bama beat Georgia.
No.
I don't think it matters, though, to be honest, because we all know Georgia's a great team. Yeah, they looked awful in the first half against Bama, but they battled back. And they're going to be in every single tough game that they play, whether that's Texas, whether that's Tennessee, whether that's us. They're going to be in all of those games still. So,
do you guys think Florida has already been putting out feelers to Lane?
Yeah, 100%.
Dude, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Texan's been down there already. But granted, he represents a ton of people, so we don't know. But I don't like it.
We can only hope that we want Kentucky to win out or perform very well for the rest of the season, so it doesn't make that loss seem critical.
Yeah.
It's brutal now. Like you guys said, though, this is the first time we got punched in the mouth. We're going to really learn a lot about this team this week when we play South Carolina. Either I think we roll them and are completely dialed, or we're going to see like a lot of immaturity and it's not going to be that hot, which I hope doesn't happen, but this should be the wake-up call we needed to get back on track.
I just think this is going to be the most painful college sports breakup that we have seen when Lane is leaving Oxford because he's beloved by everybody here. Really turned the program around from being a laughing stock to actually being a formidable opponent. I think it'll set back the program like a decade, probably. Even if
Yep.
they bring in who was it here? They were saying that you were thinking they're going to bring in was somebody saying the Tulane guy,
Summerall.
Summerall. I mean, even if you bring in, and it's hard, tough shoes to fill. I get that, but it'll be very sad. I think we're going to be directionless for a little bit, like we were with Matt Luke, and trying to find our way of just putting together a decent roster.
I disagree. I disagree with you. I don't think we're gonna fall back into the Matt Luke era. We're talking about this. This is definitely overreaction Tuesday. Talking about falling into the Matt Luke era with one loss.
I think we will.
No,
You might
and
have said
it's
we
on
already
us.
joined the Sun Belt. We
It's
already
not
joined the
just
Sun
you. It's
Belt.
on me too saying these things. So I'm not saying that. But I don't think if we're gonna fall back into the Matt Luke era and go 4-8 every single year. I think that the leadership, from a leadership perspective, we have an AD who actually wants Ole Miss to succeed and is not looking just to hop to the next job. We have a chancellor who's actually involved with the athletic department. We have a great funding source in the Grove Collective. We have a community who wants this team to do so well and has put their money where their mouth is and have donated it as such. So I think it's completely different now than it was then, just from a leadership and administrative point of view and financial point of view as well. They've put money into the football program. They put money into other sports. Like, the university is committed to winning. Now, depending on what coach you hire, yeah, we'll tell a lot about like where Ole Miss thinks they are. Like, if you get a guy like Summerall, I think he'd be a good hire. You know, I like Coach Sig from Indiana, still winner.
Great
Granted,
quote.
I don't know how that James Madison and Indiana experience will translate to the SEC, but the man's a winner. Be a fun little hire. But no, I don't think we'll be perennial. That's a tough word to say. Perennial. I'm not gonna say it. Year after year, 10-2, 11-1, 9-3 team. I think we can be an 8-4 program with a couple years with a 10-2, unless we go out and get the right coach. Unless we go out and get another Lane or a guy like that who can win at a high level. I think we've built really, really good building blocks of a program that, hey, that's going to start us on the trajectory of like an Alabama, of a Georgia. We're not there yet, and clearly we're not there yet, but we at least have started laying the foundation and laying the groundwork under the Kiffin era.
I just see nightmares ahead of Levy just running Mississippi once Lane leaves. That's kind of how I see it. I know Mississippi
They're
State.
years behind, though. You think we're going to be decades behind? They're already years behind everything.
We might be on coach number 2 or 3 at that point.
I
Yeah.
think Mississippi State's years behind everyone in the SEC, like NIL wise, facility wise, everything. I'm not worried about Mississippi State at all. I think Vanderbilt's more formidable than them right now.
Yeah, fair.
And yeah, Levy's a great hire, but again, it starts with a commitment to winning from a leadership and administrative level that I don't think they have at Mississippi State, especially financially. That NIL is really, really lacking.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope they're able to bounce back. And hell, like you were saying, it's one loss. They can still make the playoff. I'm certainly in the doomsday camp as of right now still.